Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today it's time for more Metagame Monday after taking a break last week. I expected changes for Legacy. I prepared a lot of content, but not this time. So we will be playing this Reanimator-dominated format for the foreseeable future, probably including Eternal Weekends. So I think while that might not be the favorite solution for everybody, I still think it's a good point that we can kind of expect that to be the case. We can adjust for it with a feeling that it's not just going to be some temporary thing, right? So this is for all the lame duck format believers out there. This is the exact opposite. We now know what we can expect, and we can get to work and do our best. So before getting into the results of the Legacy Showcase that was played yesterday, I want to do a little bit of advertising for my latest initiative here. Over on my MetaFi, I will be organizing Eco-ternal Weekend. So you can see this as a warm-up tournament on Magic Online going into Eternal Weekend. I'll have Legacy, I'll have Vintage, I'll have paintings for both tournaments provided by Sawatarix, which I'm incredibly excited to have. I even have an early bird giveaway sponsored by Card Titan, where everybody who enters before August 1st will be in a raffle for a weekend pass and a main event ticket for the Eternal Weekend US. I'm currently working on getting 4 seasons aboard when it comes to the European one, but as you know, Italians aren't the fastest in the world, so stay tuned for that one. I'm confident we can make it happen, but no word as of yet. So let's look into the details here of the tournament. So it's going to be September 6th and September 20th, so mark those dates. It's going to be 7 a.m. Pacific. It's going to be a Swiss tournament, unlimited space. I'm going to be, adminning the tournaments. It's going to be $20 for subscribers, and it's going to be $30 for non-subscribers. So I'm going to have the painting, and the cool part of this painting being a part of the prize is you get Kai will execute your idea. So let's say you won the Legacy tournament with, what do I know, your mono red prison deck. Then, and you want some Blood Moon themed, or like he will make a perfect result out of your ideas. He has executed that for me previously in the past in private, and he's done that for a couple of other Eternal Weekend winners. So proved, field-tested, awesome artist. Go check Kai out if you haven't already. And then I have this prize structure where I'm guaranteeing 500 treasure chests, the Legacy one, 250 treasure chests for the Vintage one, and then I plus 10 chests for every player above certain numbers. This is just to make it so that the price structure is transparent. I want everybody to see that they're getting a great deal with the painting on top. Nice warm-up for Eternal Weekend. This should be a no-brainer if you like playing Eternal Weekend formats and you play Magic Online, of course, which will be the platform of choice. All right, with that being said, let's get into Metagame Monday. The showcase was on this weekend, and I had been preparing pretty hard. I ended up taking a blue-black tempo deck to the tournament, thinking that I would be fighting against Reanimator at the top, and I kind of liked my Jund-ish 50-50 get to play a lot of Magic matchups across the board, especially the rise of red tempo. After Delver had some very stellar results recently, I liked it a lot. I noticed that Forge was on a decline, so I cut my Null Rods. Didn't exactly work out for me. I did get eliminated by Mystic Forge. So that is basically just to say that I tried to attack the numbers as usual. I tried to guide my members over on my MetaFi. And then whatever matchup you actually get drawn on the day is, that's per chance, right? So in Magic, there's no guarantees. That's why the game is perfect. We can keep playing it and perfecting the way we work. And then hopefully the hard work will pay off long-term at the very least, right? So let's start out with the top 8 here. These 8 decks made the top 8. So 3 Reanimator decks, a Storm deck, Saga Storm deck, I guess you can call it. We have blue-black tempo, we have Is It Cutter, we have Lance, and we have Death and Taxes. So this is pretty cool to see, right? We have a little bit of tempo, we have a little bit of Lance. I don't even know how to categorize that deck, but it's like a unique deck that is strong in the metagame because you have these toolboxes from Crop Rotation and Saga, and you can kind of build your flex slots around what you need to beat. Death and Taxes always a delight when you get paired against tempo. You can sideboard hard against Graveyard, and then you hope to dodge the combo decks. Blue-black tempo here, somebody other than me also thought about Orcish Bowmasters, Nethergoyf, Baragoyf being awesome into, a format that reintroduced Lightning Bolt. And then, of course, a player doing their own thing here with a combo deck. That's always awesome. Big Bad Reanimator did put 3 copies in the top 8, which is, I guess, somewhat expected. But maybe it's a little bit more than expected. Maybe 2 was like the average I would have guessed beforehand. But yeah, Reanimator coming in strong. Very, very expected. We have obviously we have the Tameo version with a lot of Murktides in it. So funnily enough, that version is a bit worse against Leyline of the Void. There's a bunch of stuff you can do, but then the hard part is justifying playing a deck that incorporates those cards, right? The go-to in the mirror seems to be either a main deck Nihil Spellbomb or a couple of Cling to Dusts, and then if you're really going the full way, we have Leylines in the sideboard, but I actually don't think they're that good in the mirror, because if you have a Leyline in play, they can still play off of your graveyard, right? So no perfect plan has been found yet, but I like the kind of smooth, the cantrip-y, make them a huge liability against the rest of the field anyway. So let's try and place these here. So we can put this with combo, with creatures, lands, tempo, and then move the other graveyard stuff over here. So looking at the big picture of the top 32 here, we have a lot of graveyard decks. Only a couple of oops. That's actually, I mean, for some people, this is going to be a little bit surprising. For me, I would have guessed maybe 0 or 1 would make the top 32. I think by now we realize that oops all spells is not a strong choice if you're trying to win a tournament, unless you really think that people are, sleeping a little bit at the wheel when it comes to, not mulliganing aggressively, playing permanent hate where you actually need to have the turn instead of, fairies, surgicals, ley lines and stuff like that, where you can really take advantage of the die roll. We can take advantage of, let's say, the surge of something like Mystic Forge and Lance in the metagame. But then with that being said, that was my instinct, right? But then I read some numbers about Land's win rate into oops, which was mind-blowing to see. So I think this is when I sometimes jokingly go like, oh, big bad oops, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, the way that people are talking about the deck by far exceeds the actual win rate of the deck, right? And this is probably some psychological aspect where, let's say you play against it 5 times, you beat it 3 times, and you still feel like you want to beat it all 5 times. Like, there's some unfulfilled feeling of losing to this deck, and your kind of rationale checks out, right? Imagine you play, I don't know, an Izzet Cutter Mirror, and you're 3-2, like, you can't really complain, right? But with oops, it's apparently something else. So with that being said, a couple of players on oops did well. That was always cool to see, through all the hate and all the bad press. We have the Fast Reanimator deck also doing, placing a copy here. I've talked about this a lot, where it's like, if people are very set on not losing to Dimir Reanimator, decks like oops and Fast Reanimator shouldn't really be good choices. But in Legacy, I think it's also important to think about that for deck experts, they can kind of exceed whatever let's say you jam 2 MTGO computers against each other, right? Then you can kind of exceed that with your expertise, which I find very fascinating, and also something that gives hope to everybody else. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. Oh, I messed up here. I forgot to talk about this deck, the top 8'd. I don't know if I misplaced it in the column or whatever, but there was a very sweet Bant Natural Order deck top 8ing this tournament in the hands of Stryfo, a legendary name. He's been known for living the dream with stuff like, I remember in the past, like Dak Fate and Punishing Fire. He would love his Pernicious Deeds, his Assassin's Trophies, very ambitious mana bases, and just trying to play Magic your own way and doing well. That's kind of the thing, right? Everybody can make like a bad deck and lose all the time, but that guy made a seemingly bad deck and then did a lot of winning. So that's really where it's all about the inspiration. I use that word a lot. It's my favorite word. We're not here for anybody to copy our homework. We're here to inspire each other to become better versions of themselves. They shouldn't try and become Stryfo. They shouldn't try and become me, right? They can maybe get a little bit of inspiration and find their own path. So that's what I'm all about when it comes to Magic. So this deck, if I had prepared a deck of the weekend, would be this one, because that's just amazing to see that you use some new cards with, like, what on earth are those cards? And you have some kind of an old formula, like 12 years ago, there used to be like a Teamer, Natural Order, Progenitus. I don't even know. I guess back then you would call it like a aggro control, aggro mid-range combo deck. Like, just this was like an early adopter of, we have multiple plans. We have like some weenie advantage, annoying plan, and then we have this big must counter. So that means that we don't know if Force of Will is great or Force of Will is a liability against that deck. And that's kind of a cool thing to have in a modern day Magic deck. You can compare it to something like Breakfast. You can compare it to something like Reanimator. Like these, you don't really know if you're playing against fair or unfair angle. The tempo decks of the tournament were also quite diverse. No Delvers, which is surprising. A couple of Demirs I already talked about. A couple of Cutter here. So I like Cutter a lot if you're playing to play against a ton of Spud removal. I like Cutter a lot if you're playing to play against a lot of Chalice and Blood Moons. So let me explain why. So Core Steel Cutter being a 2-drop, very, very good against Chalice for 1. That's usually lights out for a Delver deck, right? But Corey can be played for 2 mana. You can play a 0. You can get your monks. And it also dodges Blood Moon just automatically by being a red threat. So I like this a lot if your metagame is a lot of like pushes, bolts, chalices, Blood Moons. And then, of course, things get iffy if people play something like, I don't know, Leyline Binding, Prismatic Ending, Beseiju, like incidental disenchant effects. Also, the stock of Hydroblast is important when you're thinking about a card like Core Steel Cutter, because if you play that deck, it's like the best card in your deck, right? So you need that card to be somewhat well positioned. Single Dreadnought deck was awesome to see. I think it was even old school with Stifles. I bet that player got a lot of players with Stifle that day. And then we had a cool Sultai deck. I didn't get to like really study it, but I did see Quad Ground Seal in the main, which says a lot about what lengths you need to go to in order to be competitive with a, let's call it a rogue deck for the lack of better word. But just the fact that you can then play cards like Cling to Dust, Voidwalkers, Endurance, Ground Seal. Like, I'm not telling you to put Torma Script in your deck or Leyline in your deck unless it has like some insane synergy, but these cantrip hate pieces are just good deck building if you don't want to, you know, get sent to the loser bracket like I did. Then we're at the combo column here. 3 copies of Mystic Forge was, unfortunately for me, more than I could handle. And my research showed that this deck was on a decline. I think it was around 1.5%. So decisions were made. Didn't work out for me this time. Mystic Forge is exactly a great deck when nobody is expecting it or people are underestimating it, right? So imagine Mystic Forge was a 10% deck in Legacy. Then it would get shut down by, I don't know, Null Rods, Collector Roof, Deafening Silence, Meltdowns, bunch of Consigns, Void Mirror, Gaddock, Lavinia. Like, then it would get shut down, right? But right now it's basically you playing against Wastelands and Forces out of people. That's basically it, right? And then occasionally you play against some very hateful permanent, and it's going to be hard. But I think this deck is very strong, but it needs to be picked up at the right time, which this weekend seemed to be. A couple of Doomsday here. It's cool to always see when you see Doomsday doing well. It's not like, oh, new player does well with Doomsday. It's oftentimes these. Let's see if I can remember some of the names. We have Clan, we have Wander Pro, we have, of course, Eureka, we have your Neville Shoots of the world, and I'm probably Monkeys Can't Cry. That's like, and that's just, I've never played the deck. Yeah, I played it in one video on the channel, but I've never, but I just remember those names because they show up with Doomsday, right? So Passion is unbeatable, and a couple of guys had a very, very strong showing in this 260-player tournament. Then we have good old Omniscience here. So 0 sneak attack copies, single copy of Omniscience. I think that's just overall this deck struggling. Daze, Wasteland, Pyroblast. When people even find the audacity to play 1-mana counters like Pierce or Fluster, it's very hard to beat for this deck. It doesn't really have any other gear than Resolve a Show and Tell or Sneak Attack. You do get to grind with Stock Up, which is good. No, don't get me wrong. But there's just going to be so many sequences against Tempo where it's like, oh, daze that spell, waste your Ancient Tomb or whatever, you're back to the Stone Age, or you have to play into a Force. Just the whole, you need a Show and Tell, you need a payoff card, and then you need like Force of Will on top of that. It just asks a lot of your deck. You get bad mulligans as a result, you're bad against Thoughtseize as a result, bunch of stuff. The Storm deck, we already discussed. Awesome to see. Yeah, can't really say anything bad about people signing up with Dark Ritual and Living the Dream. The Lands deck was something I was very prepared about this weekend. I felt like lands had both good results and good press. When I talk about good press, it's basically that there was a lot of like articles and narratives floating around that lands was like a good choice. So like, what's your excuse? I even saw the premier pilot of the deck, Sprouts, tweet something pretty cool. Like, I guess this is semi-related, but I really like the point of Graveyard is just a new, game zone that demands an answer, like the battlefield. Like, remember when creatures were terrible back in the day? Nobody played creatures in, let's say, Vintage. And then all of a sudden, people start to playing, like, fish strategies. Then you need to play Swords to Plowshares. You need to play Balance. And you didn't really want that, because then you lose value in your, blue matchups, right? But that was kind of the new world order. So the Graveyard could be that for Legacy. We don't really know. But for the time being, that is exactly what it is. So you should compare that to putting, I don't know, Supreme Verdict in your deck because you think sweepers are going to be good on the day, or you put Spud Removal in your deck, or you put Lane Destruction in your deck, like Back to Basics or Blood Moon. Like, that is a metagame reaction to a certain category of cards, right? So that's how I approach it anyway. We're not used to the Graveyard being something you have to deal with, like in, for example, Vintage. But I just like the point of, well, let's live under that new world. It does make it harder for your 60 to stretch far enough, but it's the new world order, so we should either do, account for it or just keep losing, right? So I really like that message, and I subscribe to it a lot. Last column here before I let you guys go is the creature column. It's funny, Nadu midrange always does reasonably well in these tournaments. It's not very popular in challenges nor leagues, but I do see it in paper and in these bigger events. And a lot of guys are like, oh yeah, that's because of the clicks and stuff, but it's really not bad with the clicks, so it's certainly not that. Could be that some of those players are that prefer that deck, don't play super often. But who knows? I really like the deck. I think it's very solid across the board. It's like your Dimir mid-range. You have game, you can go over the top of somebody, you can cast some removal spells and buy a lot of time against other sides of the field. You have a lot of flexibility with Green Sun Zenith, like you can play Collector Roof and stuff like that. I just think it's like solid. It's not crushing anything. It's just competitive across the board. Death and Taxes Tobated, huge shout out. That was amazing to see. Then we had a cool Maverick deck here. So Achilles is a name that I've been seeing on Maverick for years and years. And this time the player did not disappoint either. So living the dream with Knight of the Reliquary. There's a lot of talk like a year ago that, oh, you can't play any green deck unless it's a Nadu deck and stuff like that. But some guys sure made a fool out of that statement. And that's exactly what should fuel you when you're picking a deck for Legacy. You should play Magic how you want to do it, and then you also have to stay true to the metagame, of course, and tweak. You don't have to pick up Reanimator and master that deck and play it until it's not legal anymore. There's certainly other ways to do well in a tournament, and I think that's kind of the message for today is you don't have to play Reanimator, but you darn sure should respect it to a proper degree. Otherwise, you're just going to lose to it and probably not have the best of times, but who knows? That could be a discussion for another day. I'm here to highlight awesome creativity, and I'm also here to stay true to the deck to beat. I don't see it as this overly dominating menace. I see it as a deck to beat, so that's like it's like a neutral statement, right? It's not, the world is not coming to an end, and I'm not, celebrating the deck. It's the deck to beat. It's neutral. Let's get to work. So with that being said, I will be going through the results from the challenges, which inevitably was my research into this tournament, and then we can see if things make sense. I'm going to do that for my members over on MetaFi. If you're not already a member, consider joining. I have tournaments where I put all my MTGO winnings into those tournaments, giveaways, a great community, most of all, where people are helping each other become better at the game, having fun, sharing screenshots, what's the play, what you have done here, how do you feel about this sideboard plan, this and that. Excited to play the challenge. That's a new thing. I'm kind of making these voice calls with a lot of guys playing the challenges, either spectating or peeking at each other's games. And yeah, just an awesome community, of course, all the guides, all the guest content. And yeah, you can join, become a Baron for just $10 a month. And at the same time, you help me pay my bills so I can keep making quality content for you guys. So everybody wins. That's going to be it for today's video, guys. Thanks so much. It was awesome to be back, and I'll see you next time for more Legacy.